Good afternoon to one and all present here. Respected Secretary, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Govt of India, and our Chief Guest for the day, Shri V. SRINIVAS Sir, Director General, NIRDPR, Dr. G. Narendra Kumar, Deputy Director General, NIRDPR, Shri Shashi Bhushan Sir, distinguished guest, faculty, staff of NIRDPR, and my dear students. On behalf of NIRDPR, I, Dr. Sucharita Pujari, extend a warm welcome to each one of you on the occasion of the 64th Foundation Day lecture of National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayat, Hyderabad. Today is an eventful day as we all gather here to commemorate 64 years of our Foundation Day. Originally established as National Institute of Community Development in 1958 at Mussoorie, the institute was shifted to its Hyderabad campus in 1965 and renamed as National Institute of Rural Development in 1977. Subsequently, recognizing the need for more focus on strengthening Panchayati Raj system and capacity building of functionaries of Panchayati Raj institutions, NIRD was renamed as National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj on December 4, 2013. As an autonomous organization of the Ministry of Rural Development, Govt of India, NIRDPR has played a significant role in the sphere of rural development. From assisting in policy formulation and program planning for rural development to undertaking training, teaching, research, and consultancy assignments in the rural development sector, the Institute's services are available to different ministries and departments of the central and state governments, public and private sector organizations, Panchayati Raj institutions, and other national and international agencies anchored in rural development. Today, on the occasion of the 64th Foundation Day lecture, we have with us an esteemed guest, Shri V. SRINIVAS Sir, who will deliver a talk on a very relevant and topical theme, 75 years of governance reforms, retrospect and prospect for rural development. Before we proceed further, may I request our chief guest, DDG Sir, to kindly come on to the stage to light the lamp and formally inaugurate the lecture. May I also request the Foundation Committee members, Dr. Devapriya and Dr. Dhiraja and Dr. Ravi Babu, to kindly join the dignitaries in lighting the lamp. Thank you, sir. I request the dignitaries to kindly take their seats on the dais. I now request DG Sir to welcome our respected chief guest of the day, Shri V. SRINIVAS Sir, with a bouquet of flowers. I request Dr. Devapriya, Associate Professor in NIRDPR, to welcome our DG with flowers. I request Dr. Ravi Babu, Associate Professor in NIRDPR, to welcome DDG and NIRD with a bouquet of flowers. Thank you. I now invite Shri Shashi Bhushan Sir, DDG and NIRD, PR, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Dr. Sushika Pujari. And to start with, we are really fortunate that respected V. Srinivas sir, who is of 89 batch and Secretary Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Govt of India is here on this occasion of 64th Foundation Day. And we will be really fortunate to hear from him. And he has made, he has taken a lot of pain to develop this lecture, and we will be really fortunate to hear. And sir has a very illustrious career. So the list is long. Sir is from Rajasthan cadre, and after his post-graduation in MTech Chemical Engineering, he joined civil service, and then after serving in Rajasthan government, sir has a long deputation career in Govt of India, 7 years as Deputy Secretary Director, and then many meaningful assignments like Deputy Director Administration AIMS, then Joint Secretary to Govt of India, Advisor to Executive, then he had international experience also in terms of Advisor to Executive Director, IMF Washington DC, and then sir has served as Chairman Board of Revenue for Rajasthan, and then moving on from there, sir is now Secretary to Govt of India. So we are really fortunate, and without losing much time, sir, like this is 64th Foundation Day for NIRDPR, sir, and for NIRDPR, as Suchitra Pujari has already mentioned how NIRDPR evolved with time. So adding to that, I will like to mention the few landmark achievements of the Institute. The Institute has the history of making landmark contribution to the society, like the framework of RTI Act, preparation of the draft for 73rd Amendment of Panchayat Raj, designing the framework of NRLM. Institute, in fact, sir, we are proud to say that the whole capacity build, NRLM is basically, it is based on the capacity building effort of mainly of NIRDPR under the guidance of the Ministry of Rural Development. So we play a very strong role in making NRLM effective, and similarly the DDU-GKY also. So it is basically a capacity building program, DDU-GKY, and the same for both NRLM and DDU-GKY, we have resource center here, which helps in capacity building. And Institute has been working in all sectors of rural development with the active support of several ministries of Govt of India, state governments, international organizations like United Nations, UNDP, UNICEF, UN Women, Melinda Bill Gates Foundation, etc. Panchayati Raj being one key area for people empowerment, the Institute has taken a big step in the form of 100+ cluster program in the aspirational districts across the country to develop them as model Gram Panchayat. Our Institute is also in the process of collaborating with JNU to introduce PG and PhD programs, which can be replicated as models by other institutes and universities for developing young professionals to work in development sector in managing the RD programs and pursuing research. So once again, I welcome all the faculty members, esteemed faculty members, respected DG sir, my other colleagues from administration and finance, and the trainees, and the student from CPGS. So I welcome you all to this 64th Foundation Day lecture. So not taking much time, because the two much better speakers are here, so we will like to listen from them. So once again welcoming you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite the DG NIRDPR, Dr. G. Narendra Kumar, who has been a guiding force and a source of encouragement of all our initiatives, to deliver the opening remarks, sir.
Shri V. Srinivas, Secretary, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Govt of India. Shri Shashi Bhushan, DDG in charge, NIRDPR, distinguished faculty members, staff, students of the PG programs of NIRD, participants. At the outset, I take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to Shri V. Srinivas and also thank him for accepting our invitation to deliver the Foundation Day lecture. The Foundation Day, this marks the launching of the Foundation Day celebrations, and the Foundation Day celebrations will continue as we go along over the next week, 10 days or so during the month of November. Various other events are planned and we would have dignitaries participating in the Foundation Day events of NIRDPR. We cannot have a better person than Shri V. Srinivas to deliver the Foundation Day lecture. An erudite individual whom I've known for close to 33 years now. He is served with distinction in various capacities of the government at the district level, state level, at the national level, and also at the international level. So he brings to us all his experiences working at these levels in various aspects of governance, administrative reforms, and his wide experience of working with the Government of India. I don't want to stand for long between him and you. All that I would like to say is that governance is very important and significant for the effective delivery of rural development programs, for capacity building in the rural development arena. Because there have been several studies which have gone to show that governance and development are intricately linked. States which have done well on governance reforms, they tend to do well with respect to the development indicators. One such state being Kerala. Other laggard states in terms of governance have also not done well in terms of the development indicators. So, good governance is sine qua non to effective development and effective delivery of rural development programs. When we talk about governance, it's not only the institutional governance, but governance at the macro level, at the government level, and the citizen interface of the government. All these aspects Mr. Srinivas will be covering in detail in his lecture. And I'm sure that this will guide our faculty members, our PG students, and our participants in their in the long term in delivering well on various pursuits that they would be undertaking in their careers. And I once again welcome Shri V. Srinivas and thank him for delivering this Foundation Day lecture. And we look forward to hearing various aspects of the good governance, its interface with rural development that he is bringing to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your deep insights on the matter. I consider it as an honor and take the privilege to introduce our chief guest for the day, Shri V. Srinivas sir, to the gathering. Shri V. Srinivas currently serves as the Secretary, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Government of India, in the Ministry of Personal, PG and Pensions. An IAS officer of Rajasthan cadre with 34 years of service, sir has occupied several distinguished positions that include, among many others, Director, Watershed Development and Soil Conservation, District Collector at Pali and Jodhpur in Rajasthan, Secretary to Government in Planning, Family Welfare and Science and Technology Departments, Chairman, Board of Revenue of Rajasthan and Rajasthan Tax Board. He has also served as Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Private Secretary to External Affairs Minister and Finance Minister, and Advisor to Executive Director India at the International Monetary Fund, Washington, D.C. As Joint Secretary, he has served in the Ministries of Textiles, Health and Family Welfare, and as Director General of National Archives of India and National Centre for Good Governance. He has also served as India's nominee on the International Monetary Fund, International Cotton Advisory Committee, the SAC Culture Center, and the International Institute of Administrative Sciences, Brussels. Sir has also excelled in the arena of sports and has represented Andhra Pradesh badminton team for 7 years and captained Osmania University badminton team for 6 years. We welcome you, sir, and are delighted to have you with us. His talk today will present the significant governance reforms undertaken, the roadmap for the next generation administrative reforms, and the benefits to rural societies from Vision India at 2047. May I now request our chief guest, Shri V. SRINIVAS sir, Secretary, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Government of India, to deliver the 64th Foundation Day lecture on 75 years of governance reforms, retrospect and prospect for rural development. Sir, please.
A very good afternoon to all. Distinguished Director General of NIRD, my good friend, colleague, batchmate, Dr. G. Narendra Kumar Garu, Deputy Director General NIRD, Shri Shashi Bhushanji, Dr. Devapriya, who had invited me for this event, Senior Faculty of NIRD. I'm extremely grateful to the Director General for inviting me to deliver the Foundation Day address. Foundation Days are extremely special occasions in the history of any institution. And I do recall delivering the 125th Foundation Day address at the National Archives of India a few years ago. And it was marked by so much fervor, passion. All the former employees had come, senior officials who had participated and worked for building the institution had participated. And I wish NIRD a huge success in this Foundation Month celebrations, because it brings together tremendous amount of memories in terms of institution building and the contribution that that institution has made to governance and bringing in radical reforms across the nation. The subject that I have chosen for today's lecture is 75 years of governance reforms, retrospect and prospects for rural development. In fact, my last visit to NIRD was in 1992 when Mr. Shankar was Director General here. And since then, I've always seen NIRD as the apex think tank for research and capacity building for rural development programs. The focus on participatory rural development models envisage a huge number of conferences, workshops, symposia, webinars, occasional papers, research papers, articles. In fact, it was a beehive of activity for rural development programs. And as also for Panchayati Raj activities once the constitutional amendment came into force. In my early years of my career, I was quite fascinated by the movement of Vinoba Bhave. I wanted to understand what Gramdan brought to villages, and as a probationer, I went and stayed in some of the villages which Vinoba Bhave had toured, and they were called Gramdan villages. And then I went and served in the Thar Desert as Additional Area Development Commissioner, constructing the Indira Gandhi Nehar Pariyojana and implementing civil works, promoting agriculture practices and looking at resettlement from Pong Dam house trees into phase 1 and phase 2 of the IGNP area. I spent about 3 years in watershed development and soil conservation, pursuing the quest for a drought-moderated Rajasthan where rain-fed agriculture was predominant, and how do we bring down migration of cattle, ensure more jobs, particularly in the non-rainy months. As district collector at Pali and Jodhpur, I did have the experience of overseeing massive drought relief operations in some of the very heavy drought prone periods of the country. And in this period of about a decade, from 89 to 99, I was witness to a huge number of innovations in civil engineering works, agriculture engineering works, particularly in the construction of watercourses in the IGNP commands, as also in the ridge to valley line watershed projects across Rajasthan, which aimed at generating massive employment. And water was a very precious resource in the desert districts at that point of time. Traversing the journey to 20 years later, in 2018, I undertook a very long travel across Rajasthan, 8,000 kilometers of road travel across the length and breadth of Rajasthan, covering 32 districts. And having met thousands of villagers, advocates, revenue court officials, what I realized was digital empowerment had become one of the most precious resources for village communities. So what struck me in every village that I visited was the proliferation of digital technology. In fact, Rajasthan's villages had changed and villages were technologically enabled. We found e-mitras, digital merchants, business correspondents were visible in every village. In fact, building to scale, building to last had become a reality. Suddenly you found everybody had a Jan Dhan account, everybody had an Aadhaar card, Swachh Bharat mission had touched almost every rural household, and there was a massive transformation in India's rural communities, each of whom had accepted technology as a part of their lives. Once technological progress was visible in the village, the impact on governance was quite significant. And when one looks at the history of administrative reforms, be it the key feature of secretariat governance or district governance, governance models have evolved over a period of time. And since independence, India has set up more than 50 commissions and committees. In fact, the Department of Administrative Reforms has housed committees from the Gorwala Committee of 1951, Ramaswamy Mudaliar Committee, thereafter we had the Santanam Committee of 1964, which resulted in the creation of the Central Vigilance Commission, the first Administrative Reforms Commission of 66 to 69 years, then the second Administrative Reforms Commission from 2009 to 2005 to 2009, each of which brought in a new and covered a gamut of areas of governance, and ranging from ethics to organizational structure of Government of India, modernizing district administration, the institution of district collector, and also tried to bring in a series of reforms into India's governance models. But what stands out is some of the basic principles. One is, what is not inspected is simply not done. This is what Gorwala said in 1951. In fact, I was looking at one of the reports of G.S. Bajpai, who had headed a committee on the organizational structure of the Central Secretariat in 1947. And I found exactly the same replica. What is not inspected is simply not done. And I think that kind of, those words still remain relevant even in the 21st century. The second aspect is, I'd like to cite an interaction with one of our great civil servants, Dr. Duvur Subbarao, who was the 1972 batch topper. And I asked him, how does he see a governance model of 21st century as compared to his model of 20th century? And Dr. Subbarao said, the challenges that IAS officers face today are no different from the challenges that IAS officers faced in the 20th century. Commitment to the larger public good against all odds. That said, 21st century governance has become highly complex. It's become far more nuanced, and everybody brings big data to the table. Decision making is nuanced, accountability levels are very high, and it necessitates a skill set that is increasingly specialized. So, I have seen over the last 4 years in the Department of Administrative Reforms the quantum of digital transformation that has set in the Central Secretariat. For example, e-office has grown from about 4 lakh files to 32 lakh files in a 4-year period. And We have reached a stage where an official who's performing poorly simply cannot hide on file. Today's campaigns, if you administer a special campaign, are administered on very strong digital models and strong digital platforms which analyze big data. Social media outreach is monitored, and also citizen satisfaction is monitored with regard to the scale of delivery. For example, if one were to conduct a revenue campaign today, you can actually touch every citizen of India. And this is what we found in the Good Governance Week that we did last year. When we speak of next generation reforms, what exactly are the components of those reforms? Next generation reforms envisage secretariat reforms, special campaigns based on identifying innovative practices, benchmarking of governance, as the Director General has said, and services, redressal of public grievances, improving service delivery, recognizing meritocracy, and replication of good governance practices. These form the core of India's good governance models for next generation administrative reforms. And the transformation of institutions from a stage of digitization to digitalization to digital transformation, where every aspect of the institute's functioning is available online through multiple online platforms interacting with one another. Maximum governance, minimum government envisages a digitally empowered nation, a digitally empowered citizen, and a digitally transformed institution. That is the quest that the government is currently pursuing, and there have been a number of successful models which have taken this vision forward, be it e-office, be it CP grants, Ayushman Bharat's Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, Rail Madad, then you have One Nation, One Ration Card, Umang, Aeronet, a whole gamut of digital platforms have come online, and many of them are oriented towards poverty alleviation, grievance redressal, providing huge number of services online, and there is widespread adoption of paperless offices across the country. Let me quote the Honorable Prime Minister that in the Amrit period of independence, we are marching ahead rapidly to create a transparent system, efficient process, and smooth governance to make development all round and all inclusive. Guided by the citizen first approach, we remain untiring in our efforts to further deepen the outreach of our service delivery mechanisms and make them more effective. In fact, in the last 2 years, I was part of many special campaigns that the government had launched. One was the Special Campaign 2.0 that was conducted from October 2nd to October 31st, the Good Governance Week, the Prashasan Gaon Ki Aur campaign. And I found the scale and size of these campaigns was unprecedented, and that was possible because we could use digital platforms which came together to monitor this kind of huge nationwide campaign that could be implemented from Itanagar in the east to Bikaner in the west, from Ladakh in the north to Kanyakumari in the south. Over 100,000 office sites could be participating in a campaign of this magnitude. In fact, the Special Campaign 2.0, which aimed at institutionalizing Swachhata and minimizing pendency in government, was based on a very strong digital platform, and it was operationalized in 99,863 office spaces, as also ensured that more than 59 lakh files were weeded out, and it earned from office scrap, which included electronic scrap as also paper files that were weeded out, 365 crores of revenue. So that was the quantum of amount that could be the resource mobilization that could be made from cleaning up your office space. We also witnessed a huge number of citizen-centric activities. For example, mechanized cleaning at all railway stations, the use of Aadhaar-based mobile banking by post offices, face authentication app for digital life certificates, reduction of passenger wait times at airports, use of drones for cleaning sewers in the Department of Atomic Energy, conversion of scrap yards and dump yards into cafeterias, yoga centers, wellness centers, each of these we had seen. In fact, we'd like to share a film with all of you on this subject. And the Doordarshan News had screened a film last night, and I think there's another screening tonight also. And the journey for conducting this kind of a massive campaign across India required advanced skill sets, particularly in digital portal management, also leadership and a deep understanding of the procedures of governance. And only then was it possible to lead a campaign of this size across thousands of offices. The second major campaign that I could administer on a pan-India basis was the Good Governance Week. And this was celebrated last year from December 20th to 24th, 2021. And a nationwide campaign where multiple grievance portals working in unison. And when we found about 25 odd grievance portals working in unison for 5 days, the cumulative effect of 700 district collectors conducting grievance redressal or improving service delivery in 5 days' time, roughly about 389 lakh service delivery applications could be disposed of. So that is the quantum when you bring multiple grievance portals to function together. And this was the first time we had done a campaign at tehsil level, and we found that in terms of improving service delivery, the citizen satisfaction levels were quite high. It's important to benchmark governance, and we've tried to do it. India has tried to develop the Good Governance Index, as also the National E-Services Delivery Assessment. With so many services being provided online, it's important to understand how the quality of these services are being done, as also to understand how the governance models of states are progressing. So an assessment on the Good Governance Index based on 10 sectors and 58 odd indicators revealed that there has been forward progression across many states. There were states like Gujarat and Maharashtra and Goa which topped the composite rank covering 10 sectors. In fact, Gujarat registered more than 12% increase and Goa registered 24% increase in the GGI 2019 indicators. Uttar Pradesh showed an incremental increase of about 8.9%. And we found that the overall direction in which states were moving was one in the positive direction, and we found that everywhere efforts were being made to ensure that vacant positions of doctors were filled up, vacant positions in terms of police stations were occupied, so that resulting in quantum increases in terms of immunization, in terms of justice delivery systems, or in terms of women's safety. Across India, the numbers showed improvements. The second assessment that we did was the National E-Services Delivery Assessment, and this we examined 1,400 services that were being provided across the country. It's a vast number of services, and on each service about 10,000 phone calls were made to citizens, and in some more than 25,000 phone calls were made. And we found that 74% of the respondents who had availed the service seemed quite satisfied. And there was an increase of about 48% in terms of the number of services that were being offered in a 2-year period. Let me come back to the original argument that the journey from digitization to digital transformation is a complex one. It requires huge amount of process re-engineering. It requires building up of a new skill set internally, and also coming up with the departments accepting that kind of change. The first time I tried to digitize an institution, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, I found it an extremely complex task to build up a portal for online registration, www.ors.govt.in. And the e-hospital project today has benefited more than 4 crore citizens who have availed for online registration. Little did we envisage then, when we were building up the portal and creating India's first fully public digital hospital, that the scale and reach of that particular portal would extend to over 600 hospitals of India today. The same way, when we digitized the Board of Revenue of Rajasthan, we did not realize that more than 5.75 lakh court cases could be monitored online, and judgments could be placed across 10,000 Gram Panchayats and transparency in terms of court work could be brought about. So bringing about a change in an institution requires a huge amount of hard work and consensus building, because you find everywhere you run against huge brick walls of resistance. Departments, institutions unwilling to adapt change need to be brought forward, and many times you'll find that consensus building is a huge time-consuming exercise. But the experience of government has been that strong digital platforms provide for immense benefits in terms of citizen service delivery, and this is something that must be pursued. I was quite fascinated by the Director General's statement and also the introductory remarks which said that NIRD would be taking up 250 model Gram Panchayats. Documentation of these Gram Panchayats in terms of innovation would be a huge input in terms of governance documentation and the progress that is strides being made in terms of participative local governance models. The third area that I'd like to touch today is recognizing meritocracy. Our department implements what is called the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration. The Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration represent the highest awards that a serving civil servant can aspire for. And there have been several success stories that I have narrated in the address. I was particularly fascinated by the work done by the collector of West Champaran, Nav Pravartan Startup Zone at Chanpatia. In fact, we have a film on this. And migrants had returned to West Champaran, and this young officer, Mr. Kundan Kumar, mapped the skills and ensured that they were deployed in the startup zone by deploying Udyog Mitras or Udyami Mitras with them. And they were given seed money to come in startups, and soon you found a huge number of them creating massive employment opportunities, and perhaps they may never need to go back again, and they, within a short period of time, migrants became owners. The second innovation at district level that was recognized last year was the project Sampurna of Bangaigaon district, and malnourishment is a major feature of many of India's villages, and this young district collector brought together a healthy mother and the mother of a malnourished child, and this buddy mother concept that was created ensured that the children's nourishment levels could be improved significantly. One of the major success stories of India's financial inclusion program has been the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. And every Indian today has a bank account, be it a no-frills account or be it an account which has substantial deposits. And one would notice that in terms of financial inclusion, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana had operationalized 32 crore beneficiaries, and the deposits were 82,500 crores. So it was a huge contribution that individuals made under the Jan Dhan Yojana. And there were significant number of success stories in terms of banking correspondence, and there are two success stories that I have given in my speech. One is this young girl, Pooja Karmasaki, who is a tribal lady in the plantations of Assam, where she went from house to house to create awareness about the PMJDY scheme, motivating more than 1,800 bank accounts being created. The second is that of Mohammad Azim, who worked with a handheld point-of-sale machine with Union Bank of India as a service provider, and he created more than 2,500 bank accounts within a period of 1 month. So it was quite incredible how individuals came forward to make this massive movement of 32 crores possible. Another scheme which has had a huge amount of impact has been the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and the Prime Minister has spoken about it from recently in Delhi, when a number of Pakka houses were constructed. And the scheme has ensured millions of Indians receiving a permanent roof. Housing for all has become a reality for several slum dwellers. Skill India is an important aspect. I was informed that the NIRD has a center for skill development, and also the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which was launched to boost skill development in India, and a number of institutes across India have come up. The ITIs have been expanded, as also a number of private sector players have come who are willing to support and contribute to skill development initiatives. In fact, in 2010, when we conceptualized the integrated skill development scheme for apparel sector workers of under the Ministry of Textiles, we found the response of the private sector was quite extraordinary, and also you could create a skilled worker within a very short period of time of about 3 to 4 months duration. And this is what I noticed when I was looking at the award winners as also the success stories that were documented. We found that under the DDU GKY, Karimnagar and Mehboob districts, massive employment could be created. Somebody had learned, one of the participants had learned under the National Council of Vocational Training, English language, and she went on to become a salesperson at the Reliance retail store outlet. Similarly, a beneficiary had gone on to learn computer courses. Black Rice Initiative, as also the Siddharthnagar Black Rice Initiative was one which had actually seen farmers' income levels grow up significantly. Another example is the Jorhat Chili Initiative, wherein which chilies from Jorhat of Assam could be exported abroad. Let me come to an area where I worked and spent many years in, that was watershed development, particularly Maharashtra. They've seen a lot of success stories. There was one success story of Namsai, there's a success story of Solapur. In fact, Rajasthan itself had a number of success stories, particularly in the ridgeline to valley line treatment, where the Aravali hills could be greened again. It's important in this pursuit of good governance, redressal of public grievances is a very key aspect. And you will find that across India, a district collector receives about 300,000 public grievances an annum. A state government is receiving anywhere between 20 lakhs to 50 lakh grievances per annum, and the Department of Administrative Reforms in Government of India is receiving about 30 lakh grievances per annum. These are huge volumes of grievances that are to be handled, and these are being handled using a portal called the CP Grams. The centralized integration with state portals and district portals has been pursued, as also ensuring capacity building of officers who are mapped on these portals. So let me brief you on how much work has gone into public grievances across India. Many of you would have seen the Janahita portal of Telangana, the Spandana portal of Andhra, the Swagat portal of Gujarat, the Jan Sunwai portal of Uttar Pradesh, the E-Janaspandana of Karnataka, CM window of Haryana, Mo Sarkar of Orissa, Aple Sarkar of Maharashtra, and Chief Minister's WhatsApp grievance redressal system of Meghalaya. And you'll find a huge number of grievance portals across the country where states have operationalized, and each of these has been integrated with web APIs with the CP Grams. In fact, when we had the category of grievance redressal and improving service delivery in the Prime Minister's Award Scheme for Excellence in Public Administration, it received a huge number of nominations. And we could showcase all the success stories, more than 15 success stories in a national workshop. And I found that district collectors were deeply committed. In fact, the institution of district collector, if you dates back to the British period, has always been seen to camp in villages listening to grievance redressal. And today we have a portal-based system where monitoring across multiple departments is possible. it's important to replicate good governance practices. I was asking Dr. Sahu, what are the big contribution of NIRD that can be replicated on a pan-India basis? In fact, one of the webinar series that we wish to pursue with NIRD is to replicate the best governance practices in rural development across the length and breadth of India. In fact, we have an MOU between the National Center for Good Governance and the National Institute of Rural Development to propagate the best values. In Government of India, the National Good Governance webinar series is conducted on the last Friday of every month. In fact, the last one that we had held was attended by about 1,000 participants and on the subject of Swachh Bharat. So those of you who are willing to follow on innovations or good governance practices by young district collectors, you can always log into this platform and listen to how individual leadership at district level has brought in transformational governance reforms. We also conduct the regional conferences for replication of good governance practices. This year the regional conferences were held at Srinagar, Itanagar and Bangalore, and after each of these conferences a resolution is adopted to ensure that the replication is made more robust and more deep-rooted. Government of India is formulating a vision India at 2047, and we are one of the departments formulating our vision for 2047 on governance. And as you would know, the union government has always followed a principle of subsidiarity, wherein which state level issues are handled in states, district level issues at districts, local issues at the Panchayat level. There has also been a massive revamping in terms of the Central Secretariat Manual of Office Procedures to provide and understand and improve the efficiency in terms of decision making. One of the big features that came up from the huge number of meetings that were held on Vision India 2047 was that a massive collaboration needs to be built between civil servants, technocrats and startups, as also academics. So we reached out to the Indian Institute of Technology Madras Research Park and we identified seed stage startups where young entrepreneurs were working with about 10 years of experience just out of university, started working on many dreams which they were pursuing. Young district collectors, we had identified 40 district collectors less than the age of 35 and 40 advanced startups, as also 40 academics who were assistant professors largely, and about 10 professors, this group of 200 brought together by 10 professors. And we found that the exchanges in terms of the 10 sectors to develop a futuristic vision were quite fascinating. In fact, we'll be happy to share those papers that these young officers have produced in terms of how governance models can be redefined, particularly energy net zero, fighting climate change, in terms of educational models, health sector models, social justice models, in each of these areas which they had examined, and urbanization was another big area they had worked on. And there was a lot of emphasis with regard to the foundational and non-negotiable values of ethics and integrity. In fact, a quest for Naitik Bharat. The importance of incorporating management practices of 21st century governance is one of the most fascinating exercises that I was part of. And as I saw these young officers coming up with new ideas on how they wish to see India in 2047, I realized that how different the policy making models of the 1990s were as compared to the models that we're looking at in 2022. So let me conclude by saying that the effort to bring the government and citizens closer by using digital technology necessitates implementation and adoption of next generation administrative reforms. And this will entail considerable amount of process re-engineering, universalizing access to e-services, excellence in digital initiatives at district level, excellence in technologies, use of ICT in management. So the key areas that you should look at are office automation, use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and particularly looking at collaborations with young startups working in your field. And we can be sure that NIRD would be an integral part of future governance models of India and coming up and identifying grassroots level innovations which can be replicated and also incubated across the length and breadth of the country. So let me thank the Director General for inviting me to this event and congratulate all faculty on the 64th Foundation Day. Thank you very much. We have a film on the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration, which we will show you on how innovations are incubated in government.
आपकी पर दबाव भी बहुत आते रहेंगे। आपको एक मंत्र सदा सर्वदा याद रखना है। फील्ड में रहते हुए आप जो भी फैसले ले उसमें देश हित होना चाहिए, राष्ट्रीय परिप्रेक्ष्य होना चाहिए। आपको हमेशा ये याद रखना है कि आप एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत के भी ध्वजवाहक है। इसलिए आपके हर एक्शन, आपकी हर गतिविधि नेशन फर्स्ट, ऑलवेज फर्स्ट, राष्ट्र प्रथम, सदैव प्रथम, इसी भावना को रिफ्लेक्ट करने वाली होनी चाहिए।
छोटे से गोदाम से शुरू हुई कंपनी आज देश विदेश सब जगह माल भेज रही है, सब जगह मखाना भेज रही है और इन सब का श्रेय सरकार को जाता है।
हमारा बैकग्राउंड ठीक नहीं था, आज हमारे बच्चे एमटेक कर रहे हैं और कृषि पर आधारित ही हमारा जीवन यापन हो रहा है।
खेलो इंडिया स्कीम थी, उसके अंडर में ये स्टेडियम बना है। अच्छी फैसिलिटी मिली है, बाहर नहीं जाना पड़ता प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए, पहले हमें बाहर रहना पड़ता था प्रैक्टिस के लिए।
बच्चे लोग बहुत खुश हो रहे हैं ये सेंटर खुलने के वजह से और मोटिवेट हो करके देश के लिए और मेडल लाने की कोशिश में हम सभी खुश हैं।
मिनिमम ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन हो और किस प्रकार से लोग उस सर्विस को बिना किसी फिजिकली प्रेजेंट हुए फेसलेस तरीके से, सीमलेस तरीके से अपने घर पे ही उसको प्राप्त करते हैं।
मेरा गांव मेरा घर है और अब यहाँ काम के लिए कहीं और जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। सारी सुविधाएं अब यहीं उपलब्ध हैं।
पार्टी वाला था लेकिन अब मैं पार्टी वाला नहीं हूँ, मुझे अपनी दुकान मिल चुकी है, मैं काफी खुश हूँ। मैनेजर ने मुझे एक और बात बताई कि आप जो है कि आप दुकान पे QR कोड लेकर के जाइए, अपनी दुकान पे रख लीजिएगा। इसके डिजिटल लेन देन करेंगे तो आपको काफी फायदा होगा, जिससे कैशबैक मिलेंगे।
अपने बच्चे की प्रोटेक्ट करें और हम अपना बच्चा समझे इसको कुपोषण से सुपोषण की यात्रा कराने के लिए सबसे पहले डिस्ट्रिक्ट के कुछ ऑफिसर्स ने ही अडॉप्शन चालू किया। धीरे धीरे तमाम अडॉप्टर्स को इसमें इनकॉर्पोरेट करते गए।
మా గ్రామంలో గర్భిణీలు బాలింతలు
पोषण अभियान ने हमें एक नई उम्मीद जगाई। फिर हमने मिनट प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत की, जिससे बच्चों और माओ के स्वास्थ्य में सुधार हुआ और अब वो सुपोषित हैं।
Major offshoot of this has been that it has changed our thinking and
and instilled in us a self-belief that our industry, big or small, is capable of solving our military problems.
Thank you, Srinivas sir, for your illuminating insights on the matter. I'm sure there have been significant takeaways from this address, and I'm sure we all have benefited immensely from it. Thank you for your time and attention, sir. Now, we invite questions from the audience. If there are any questions, sir would take it from. We'll pass on the mic if there are any questions. So 3 questions at a time.
Excellent lecture, sir, actually. Sir, have you done any innovation in governance in Rajasthan? It's exciting. Yes,
One more, two questions more, so we'll take 3 questions together. If there's more questions, let us know.
He says take one by one.
Okay. One by one. Okay, sir.
It's a very interesting question, particularly when you go back and see innovations in government can be set up and what is possible. As I said, if I look at the contemporary landscape in terms of digitization, the digitalization of the Board of Revenue of Rajasthan was one of my recent experiences. Digitalizing 1,500 revenue courts of Rajasthan, placing judgments online, ensuring that the collectors' court sittings, the subdivisional officers' court sittings, the revenue appellate authorities' court sittings are monitored, the advocates are sent SMS messages. But this was a fascinating experience in terms of, because there was huge resistance to bringing transparency into governance. And it required a lot of consensus building across multiple stakeholders. There were litigants, were also the court officers and the revenue courts who were functioning. It took me about 18 months, and I've documented it as to the first digital transformation of revenue courts in Rajasthan. You'll find a lot of articles on this subject. However, when I go back and see in the first decade of governance, particularly watershed development, soil conservation, or in the IGNP, we had to bring in a huge number of innovations into governance. And one of the first big innovations we had was the World Bank was asking us to promote vetiver as part of the watershed development contour hedge treatment. And we found in Rajasthan we could not grow vetiver. Our moisture levels were not adequate enough. In fact, we were doing contour bunding, and we found that the mortality rate of vetiver was very high. And we also realized that in terms of developing pasture lands, it was very important, particularly to ensure artificial insemination of cattle was important, along with ensuring that the pasture lands were restored. So these areas of work were extremely fascinating in terms of rural development innovations, particularly construction of check dams. I found that even in the ridgeline to valley line treatment, even under the NWDPRA at that point of time, we were building a watershed atlas, and they said that more useful. I'm sure NIRD would have done a lot of work on watershed developments innovations. And projects which invested slightly high come forward, the village farm community had to come forward to ensure the pasture was protected and not grazed out. It required participatory development was fascinating, and one of the preludes to the RTI was, I found Rajasthan, they used to write the cost of every work was put up on a nameplate. And a few years later, it became the Right to Information Act, wherein which people could actually take information and seek information from file notes, as also how decisions had transpired. So the progression of what appeared to be a simple gesture of transparency of putting a cost per work in a public platform, particularly on the work site in terms of a hoarding could actually result into a large scale movement and brought in huge amount of transparency in terms of the Right to Information Act. I hope that satisfies you or no? Okay. In terms of the sheer impact of how a digital board of revenue functioned, what we found was, for the first time, we could dispose of the courts, the board of revenue with 26 benches could dispose of 1,250 cases a month, a digital model. And in a physical model, we were disposing about 350 to 400 cases a month. So technology was a force multiplier. The same way when we digitized AIMS, we found that the number of OPD patients that AIMS could take once a digital model was put in place went up to more than 2.5 lakhs, and this is month on month. And prior to a digital model being put in place, we could handle about 1.3 to 1.4 lakhs. So we could add almost 100,000 more patients for OPD care within the same hospital premises, because in terms of the number of OPD slots could be freed up, and the patients could reach a consultation room directly rather than wait. So the patient's wait time was cut down by about 7 hours in the hospital, the doctor's wait time was cut out, and when we digitalized departments, 65 departments were digitalized, we found it resulted in huge amount of savings. The same way when we digitized the central secretariat, for example, in terms of the increasing efficiency in decision making, that was a more recent initiative, we found that delayering alone resulted in massive savings in terms of functional posts, And that is how this entire objective of maximum governance, minimum government can be realized. I hope that satisfies you. Yes. Kindly introduce yourself and then I'll be happy to.
Sir, I'm Subrat Mishra. I'm faculty of this institute. Thanks for an unparalleled lecture also, but our concern is digitization has brought about transparency, accountability, but at the same time we don't have infrastructure at the bottom to deliver the people's expectation. That is number one. And second thing, technology may be a tool of development, but still grassroots bureaucracy is oblivious to, apathetic to, arrogant to the needs of.
Change is gradual. As I said, technology is being largely accepted by rural societies. And today you find huge number of business correspondents, e-mitras, as also banking correspondents across the length and breadth of the countryside. Digital penetration in terms of, when you bring in a digital model into a rural economy, what you find is there are internet rich and internet poor. There is a gap, and that gap is being addressed through the common service centers. So the proliferation of common service centers, development of internet high-speed pathways, this is the future in terms of improving service delivery. But as I see it, and I've written in the speech also, that there is a 48% jump in terms of the number of services that the nation is offering online. 48% jump. And the citizen satisfaction level has gone up for those who have been using digital services by about 74%. So if you see Umang I recall in 2018 when I first saw Umang, had about 250 services on its platform. Today it has 1250 services that are being provided on Umang platform. Similarly, you look at the Seva Sindhu app. The Seva Sindhu app represents the saturation in terms of the number of services provided online. 798 services are being provided online. And there are states which have looked at the model of doorstep delivery. I've seen it successfully implemented in Arunachal Pradesh and even in districts like Tawang, which is quite a far-flung district of the country. Doorstep delivery could be successfully implemented. But the increasing rise in terms of the number of online services has been a feature in terms of India's governance progression. And that is a path that should be adopted because more and more citizens would like to avail services. I'm sure in the early, you would have stood in a line to buy a railway ticket at some point of time, and you would have had to wait several hours to get a railway ticket. Today, nobody stands in line to get a railway ticket. You get online tickets. The same with airline tickets. And the quantum of ease and working with an IRCTC portal is far better than going to Secunderabad railway station to get a ticket. So digitization and digital transformation are the key to governance models of India, and that is what this lecture that I bring today. When you look at the prospects of governance in the 75th year of independence, we must look at digitally transformed institutions.
You always said to us that there was a guideline of NWDPR, a Varsa Jan Sevakta. So you were telling to us that I am reading this book every day as a Gita, and whenever I read it again, I find everything new every day. Like that, and 3 mantras for the animal improvement, like reduce the unproductive animals through castration, and improve the variety through artificial insemination, and the fodder improvement. These 3 mantras I could not forget after the 25 years of service also. Thank you, sir.
I'm very happy to see you. I'm very happy to see you. And one thing I must point out to each of you here is that field visits are vital, you know, and as I recall, every posting of mine, I found that night halts were vital to understand governance models, and interaction was very important. As I said, the last one was about 8,000 kilometer journey in which I met very many young sub-collectors, and one of the sub-collector's words still stick with me. She was promoted from the Rajasthan Tehsildar service to the Rajasthan Administrative Service. I asked her, why aren't you doing your court work? She said, sir, in the Rajasthan Tehsildar service, I am used to writing summary judgments, which did not need interpretation of the provisions of Rajasthan Tenancy Act. I used to work on the Rajasthan Land Revenue Act and would write one-page judgments. Now I'm having to interpret issue-based judgments under the Tenancy Act, and I'm very hesitant. I need skill upgradation. And that led to creation of a massive capacity building program for subdivisional officers. So the same way, when we brought in young junior engineers into the watershed development program, it was important to interact and engage with each one of them to ensure this Varasa 7 guidelines which were put up. In fact, they're one of the fascinating books that have been written by Ministry of Agriculture, and at that point of time were widely adopted and replicated on a pan-India basis. And in Rajasthan, we were looking at drought moderation, particularly in the districts of Ajmer, Udaipur, and Varsa guidelines had a major impact on those periods. Yes. Yes, please.
Any more questions? So, shall we?
One question.
Okay, please.
Sir, under the Rural Ministry, a lot of programs are being implemented for the development. So, I think just like every employee is getting enhanced DA enhancement, depending on the inflation rate. There are many schemes like PMAJ scheme as mentioned in your report. I think over the years they are not changing the support that is to be extended by the government. But when at every the material cost is increasing, is it not necessary for the government to have a concurrent review of the inflation rate and see that the support that is being given to the poor people with regard to these schemes also concurrently enhanced, so that the beneficiaries need not look into the go into the debt trap? Is it not necessary for the government to see the concurrent evaluation of this and see that the schemes are accordingly, I think, support is extended?
It is a part of every scheme that whenever there is the next, what should I say now, 3-year plans are being prepared, and an evaluation report is submitted with every scheme before it is taken up for next round of large financing, next 3 years plan financing or 5-year plan financing which is taken up. So concurrent evaluation is an inbuilt system into government's plan approval process, and it has always been an inbuilt process into government's plan approval process. I recall so many schemes. In fact, we got our own scheme of administrative reforms concurrently evaluated by the Indian Institute of Public Administration. It is a mandatory feature actually, otherwise plan funds are not devolved.
There's a lot of disparity between state to state. Lot of disparity between state to state.
I meant the Government of India's plan schemes. That was what I was pointing out. That the Government of India's plan schemes, evaluation on a periodical basis is an inbuilt provision before the scheme is renewed.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions?
Good afternoon, sir. So I'm a student of CPGS, batch 20. My name is Devapatin Patnaik. So, sir, actually, in your speech, you have written that social justice is one of the core focus area of Government of India. So, actually, I was asking, sir, how our governance system can be more responsive to domestic violence, and how e-enablement can be done so that our whole system can be more responsive, because the data we get are heavily underreported, it seems. So how can we do, how can the whole governance system can be more responsive, sir?
It does not emanate from today's discussion, but if you see the Good Governance Index, there is a sector of improving justice delivery, and there are certain parameters that have been identified in sectors on how protection to women can be increased. And one of them is deployment of women police personnel in police stations. So that has been a monitored area, and we find that even in that particular indicator, there have been improvements which have been witnessed.
More questions? If there are no questions, sir, shall we move on to the next event, sir? So thank you all. Now we have a very pleasant task at hand. So may I request DG sir to present a shawl and a memento to our chief guest, Shri SRINIVAS sir, as a token of appreciation. Sir, please take your seat, sir. So as the program draws to a close, I now invite my senior colleague, Dr. A. DARPG, to deliver the vote of thanks, please.
Respected Chief Guest of this occasion, Shri V. SRINIVAS IAS, Secretary Department of Administrative Reforms and Department of Pension and Pensions Welfare, respected DG sir, respected Deputy Director General DDG sir, guests from the department, DARPG, Government of India, eminent guests, my faculty colleagues, staff members of NIRDPR, dear students. The Institute takes pride for commemoration of the 64th Foundation Day celebration in the month of November 2022 every year. The Foundation Day lecture is the most auspicious event of the celebration, when the faculty and staff of NIRDPR are addressed by one of the visionaries who guides us to reach greater heights in terms of achieving the mission of our institute. We heard one excellent deliberation from today's guest, Shri SRINIVAS, which will go a long way to motivate all of us in achieving our goals in fulfilling the aspirations of rural people by taking forward the Vision India 2047 ahead, next 25 years. So we sincerely thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time and visiting our institute and delivering such an excellent lecture on this auspicious occasion. My sincere gratitude to our DG, sir. He has been a constant inspiration for organizing the Foundation Day lecture. Thanks to our beloved DDG, sir. He is always there with us to guide us at every step for successfully organizing this program. We are thankful to the eminent guests, faculty members, staff, students for being with us during this Foundation Day lecture. Our sincere thanks to the NIRDPR administration, account section, staff members of hostel, audiovisual unit, engineering and maintenance section, caretaker for their constant support in organizing this event today successfully. My team members, Dr. Dhirja, Dr. Ravi Babu, and Dr. Sucharita, despite of her illness, she could anchor this particular program, deserve a special thanks for their continued hard work to make this program a grand success. Thank you all. Jai Hind. I request all members in the dais as well as the participants to join us for a high tea in the lawn in front of SK Rao block. At the same time, please join us for a photograph. Thank you so much.